Yeah, I get right to the racks. Then I make that shit back. Run up on me, get shot in the back.
It's James TV in the building for you, Scott Shell, man. Back another. Darius, hey, boss, we got Florencia 13 Takeover, the most strategic gang in LA. Internal murders, war, plans, and indictments.
Oh, wow. So they're like a lot of police contact.
Wow, Florencia. It's funny we heard about them before. I believe we did a documentary.
I thought we covered them before. They're deep.
Yeah, look up Florencia at James TV. It'll come up.
Shout out to Florencia.
Yeah,
mad deep.
Saludos.
Saludos de Nueva York hasta California.
Let's get it, man. It's James TV via the Skype channel. Follow me on James TV Instagram. Follow me at
Pops Reacts on Instagram.
Join the
Discord below.
Right.
Go to JavenTV.com
and get
on the website and buy a shirt. Go to Javen TV
Twitch,
which is Javen TV with an extra V.
with two VJJ.
So it's Javen TV Vagina. Javen TV Vagina.
It's Javen TV. It's all right there. We're talking.
Rap News Street Politics, the best hood channel on YouTube. And we back in the streets with La F. Southside Florencia 13. Now, Florencia could be labeled as the most strategic gang when it comes to gang warfare in the city of LA. Now, when I say gang warfare, I know a lot of people are going to take into consideration the murders, the bodies, who's dropping them, and of course, the fear factor, the reputation that a set has. And you know, we're going to speak on all of that with Florencia. We're going to have the bodies, press and play on their enemies, who's the top shooters in their section, and of course, countless federal indictments involving the Mexican mafia and various situations where we see them spanking the police and their own people. But when I say gang warfare with Florencia, I'm talking territory.
Yeah. I'm stingy with this shit, don't be surprised. Yeah. You can be this way when you miss the D2B.
Yeah, we did a Florencia 100 vlog.
Now, Florencia is the largest monolithic hood in Los Angeles. They control the largest uniform organizational structure in the city. Starting on the east side of South Central, we know these dudes is going about 40 blocks north to south. From 51st Street, where they do have a clique, the 51st Street Locos, by the Pueblos, all the way down to 92nd Street. Now, I know some people have said they not on 92nd. I've seen these dudes at 89th and Central at the Liquor Bank. They do be around here on 92nd and Central. And south of Florence, they're going from San Pedro, where they occupy and hold an alliance with the Swans, to Graham, where we see them with their newfound truce between 7-6 and 8-9 East Coast, and also occupying one of the deadliest parks in the city, Roosevelt Park. And north of Florence, they're going from Central to Alameda, where they're also sharing this area with 5-9 East Coast. And the second half of their hood is going east of Alameda, where they're also going to be controlling again about 30 blocks this time, north to south. And from Alameda, some of their hood is stretching all the way to Atlantic between Bell and Florence. But most of it is going to be stopping at Salt Lake Avenue. And of course, at the divide on Miles Avenue where they beef with the Traviesos. But this is just on the east side. Down Florence on the west side, they occupy the same area as the Harvard Park Brims, going from Western to Hoover between Slauson and 64th. And they're going to occupy the same area as the Rolling 70s, the 6-7s and the Menlos, going from Normandy to Hoover over here as well. And their last piece down Florence is going to be at Hyde Park between West Boulevard and Crenshaw and Hyde Park in Florence. And this right here is going to be the basis for their long-term strategy with this gang warfare. So we know historically...
It's funny because as someone who's an outsider, right, from the East Coast, we don't hear about these gangs. Like, if you're not in tune with the West gang culture, you're not going to hear about this. The only thing you hear about is Bloods, Crips, and Hoovers.
Yeah, but that's because it's a label, like an umbrella. This would be like a Mexican gang. So like the Blood Crips, they have their own sets and they have names. Like you said, the Rolling 70s. 60s. And so, yeah, so we learning all that. Obviously, you're right, though. I never heard of Florencia. But now that this is like our second documentary, like they're mossy deep. Like it's a lot of them.
That's why I'm saying that. Like for these gangs to be so deep, how are we not hearing about these gangs in the East Coast? That's how I'm looking at it.
You're not paying attention, Holmes?
Maybe not.
Florencia has been known to be cool with the Bloods. Again, over here in the 50s above Slauson, they've always shared a tight-knit bond with the Pueblos.
Yeah, do my nigga. Trying to get in, my nigga on the hood. Yeah, my Pueblo niggas on blood. Yeah, all that. Yeah.
That's right.
And they also share a bond with the Swans. Again, on 89th and Central, we seen them showing their respects to Peanut when he passed away, who was from NHF. And they also share a tight-knit bond with the Harvard Park Brims. So like I said, historically, them with the Bloods, they've always kept it tight-knit, and Florencia has been known to wear red as well. But the key thing people know them for is the beef with the Crips, East Coast, and that one time they was beefing with the Kitchens. Now, we've always talked about how the truce came to fruition from the East Coast side with Doc and other members from East Coast that brought it together. But the two main heads of Florencia, Wizard and Tablas, set this thing in motion, allegedly, before East Coast did. But the key thing we have to know, again, with these main two heads, Tablas, who we're going to refer to as AC, and Leonel Laredo, aka Wizard, are said to be the main two calling all the shots from prison. Now, it was said in 2004, Tablas wrote the rules for F-13, or the reglas, as some may call them. And shortly after this, in 2007, Wizard got the nod to also become a leader of Florencia. Again, both of these dudes have been inducted into La M. And in October 2016, Wizard was caught on a wiretap discussing forming an alliance with the East Coast Crips. So these were some of the first dealings with this truce from the Florencia side. And the reason being why this would be advantageous for Florencia is because they're trying to take over the city. It sounds crazy, but let's take a look. So we know this was arguably one of the deadliest wars in the city between East Coast and Florencia. For both hoods, there was no winners, and it was truly steel sharpening steel. But when you put this down, you free up this 5-9 East Coast area, the 7-6, and this 8-9 East Coast area.
The blacks and Mexicans go at it down south.
Not only go at it, but they also find a way to find truce. It's very interesting. Usually when the war is on, it's hard to stop it.
Yeah.
But I guess this going on decade after decade, like death after death and violence, we reach a point where like, yo, like we can't continue like this, because when you have that drama and that violence, it brings police contact,
indictments.
Yeah.
Which is also occupied by Florencia. There's no beef. They can move further west down Florence, where they already have a clique in Harvard Park. They're trying to connect it. And this is what we see Florencia does. Now, how they've gained a lot of this territory, they've soaked up different hoods and cliques over the years. They've turned different sets into Florencia. And these boundaries are set based on problems that they've encountered in that expansion. And as you can see, it hasn't been too many. But the only problem that they're facing right now is on Florence and San Pedro, which is why they moved down San Pedro, where you have 7 Trade DNA, Endo, and Barrio Majados, who beef with F-13. And behind them, across the 110, you have 18th Street in Vermont Nose. So the key thing is now, since they don't beef with East Coast, this whole area north of Florence, the 6-pack, they can operate in, as we see them operating in 5-9, 7-6, and 8-9 hood. This is not a weakness move from East Coast either, because as we're gonna detail, both sides felt the pressure and both sides was getting cracking. This is only advantageous when talking gang warfare for East Coast and Florence, who are both jockeying for territory with their enemies. Now, since there's no beef with the 6-pack, Florencia is trying to bleed past San Pedro to connect the East Side South Central hood to the Harvard Park hood. But their main point of contention over here is gonna be Barrio Majados and Barrio 18th Street. And the key thing we also have to notice, Florencia is known to have more black alliances and black relations than Southside relations. A lot of Southside hoods are known for this. And even though Barrio Majados is cool with 84 Main Street over here, Barrio Majados is still in a bind because they also beef with 18th Street west of the 110 from them. So they have Florencia on San Pedro, 18th Street just across the freeway. Side, right? This is a squeeze, but this is what Florencia is trying to do to connect to their Harvard Park section. Now, once they get to the Harvard Park section, it honestly could result in one of, I would say, 3 things. If they successfully get here, they're gonna want to expand Hyde Park. Hyde Park, their main point of contention is with Inglewood 13. So I feel like they're content right now with staying on West Boulevard. They want to take their Hyde Park set east and connect it to the Harvard Park section. But to do that, they would have to occupy past Crenshaw, deeper into the 6-0s and the north side 8 trays. So the one thing that can happen, kind of what's already transpiring, the 6-0s and the 8 trays, not necessarily tripping out. Florencia has 9 and 8 trays right now. In this area on Florence and Western and Florence and Normandy are some very hot spots between the Menlos, the Brims, the 8 trays, and the 6-0s. So I don't know if Florence occupying this area really puts anybody in a bind. You know, it really may be like, damn, they hitting up.
It's crazy how nobody wrote graffiti on Jesus Christ. They wrote graffiti all around Jesus Christ.
Wow, let me peep.
That's respect.
Hot spots between the Menlos, like the Brims, the 8 trays, and the 6-0s. So I don't know if Florence occupying this area really puts anybody in a bind. You know, it really may be like, damn, they hitting up heavy over here, because that's what Florencia do. They strike it up all the way to let you know they in their section. So it really could go off without a hitch, connecting Hyde Park to Harvard Park. Or they can start beefing with the 6-0s to take their Hyde Park to Western, and we can see the Harvard Park section bleed into the north side 80s to Western based on them now having a common enemy in the 6-0s. Or it could be vice versa. If Harvard Park moved down Western into the north side 80s and the 8 trays not feeling that could spark a situation, and they Hyde Park clique could start bleeding closer to Western, forming somewhat of an alliance with the 6-0. So it's very plain to see what's going on and why the truce between Florencia and East Coast was necessary, and it doesn't exactly spell out any new wars in the city.
Get your broke ass around. Handouts ain't giving none. Y'all hustle lousy. Change up like Vivian. All out the fucks. Nah, I ain't giving none. Baby ain't about a shit. Then she ain't getting none. Mamas.
And I would say there's three things that are somewhat working against Florencia that's low-key holding them back from executing this plan. Number one, we know the feds. And this is in response to some people in the comments. When we did the MS-13 video, we talked about MS-13 and how they get down. I seen somebody said MS-13 is a regular hood in LA. And I'm sure some people are gonna say certain things about F-13. But most Sudaño hoods, especially the big ones, we talking 18th Street, MS-13, PBS Rabbit Gang, and Florencia, as well as some others, they go through these federal indictment periods about every 3 to 4 years. And this is pivotal. We've seen a lot of these indictments happening really in the early 2000s. A lot of these hoods have been hit with about 4 or 5 indictments, taking a lot of members, a lot of leadership, a lot of generals off the street. So this is why.
Logically, as a gangbanger, you look at it like this, like, look, listen, we might get indicted in 3 years. I might get swept off the streets. Why keep doing this, right?
That's not the logic of a gangbanger. A logic of a gangbanger is like I'm repping my set today and forever. So there's no like, oh, I think I've done enough. Let me go move to Mississippi somewhere and get a job. Like it's like that's their life.
Yeah, that's true. How do you guys feel about that? Like,
I'm sure there's guys that are like, yo, the feds just grabbed up 16 dudes. I'm done.
Yeah, like historical data shows that they get indicted every 4 years. So why keep doing crimes? Or not even why keep doing crimes?
Money.
Why? Like, let's say you're a youngin from the block and you've seen 2 generations get indicted. You would think you would want to chill, right?
I would, more on logical basis, yeah.
Let's say you're 12 years old, right, and you've seen your dad get indicted, then your older brother get indicted. You would think like, oh, I shouldn't be doing crimes.
Yeah, but you gotta sometimes show loyalty to your family. You got no choice. Let's show square.
Why some hoods may not look a certain way. Like I said, somebody said MS-13 is a regular gang. Well, just imagine, they have 5 indictments since 2013, and the same goes for Florencia. So this is one thing that's kind of hindering them in their plan. A new indictment just came out, which we're going to get into. The second thing is their enemies. So as you can see, west of Florence and east of Florence, they run into 18th Street. When you get over here in this Bell, Huntington Park area, the Traviesos are controlling a little bit of an area right now. They're not a large set, but there's multiple different 18th Street hoods over here that they for sure are beefing with. Of course, Cudahy Teresa is also beefing with 18 and Florencia, and Crazy Ass Mexican, shout out PK, is also beefing Bell, Huntington Park area. The Traviesos are controlling a little bit of an area right now. They're not a large set, but there's multiple different 18th Street hoods over here that they for sure are beefing with. Of course, Cudahy Teresa is also beefing with 18 and Florencia, and Crazy Ass Mexican, shout out PK, is also beefing with Florencia over here. And we did a video on this section and on the East Side South Central section. Check that East Side South Central and the Huntington Park Cudahy Maywood video out. We break down all the other hoods that's over here. But as you see, where Florencia stops, the beef begins. On Florence and the 110, 18th Street is right here. And then they Harvard Park section right across Slauson, that's 18th Street as well. And then going across Slauson on the east side, they beefing with the Playboys. And again, Barrio Majados is right there. Past 92nd is really somewhere where I do not see them going at all, because Florencia has a no Watts type thing. They beefing with every Sudaño hood in Watts. I've seen them give a pass to Watts Bloods, so I can't say they beefing with every Watts hood. I really think it's just all Watts Sudaños. Primarily Bordentown, who's actually above Firestone but still claim Watts. Watts Barrio Great, Southside Watts, and Azatlan Trece over here between the Dow and Florence. So this is definitely an area that's problematic for them going that way. But the third thing, which I see is extremely prevalent in a lot of Southside hoods, internal beef. I would say that's their strongest factor right now. The internal beef that be cracking in their own hood. So Florencia, like many other sets, they have a lot of moving pieces. You have Wizard and Tablas calling shots. You also have presidents and vice presidents of these cliques. We know it's about 20 different F-13 cliques with a little bit over 2,000 members in F-13, and everybody has to follow the rules. We know there's casitas, homies gotta sell dope. It's a lot going on within these hoods, but one of their main tasks that we see is them getting down on their homies that's not following the program properly.
37 people associated with the South LA Florencia 13 have been arrested following raids on 30 homes early this morning. Authorities say they funded the gang through armed robberies, extortion, and the sale of illegal drugs, including fentanyl, methamphetamine, and heroin. They're also accused in murders and assaults.
So this indictment that just dropped came out in 2023. Superseding indictment came out last year, July 31st, 2024. And the main guy that's holding it together and taking instruction from Tablas and Wizard is Celerino Jaramillo, aka Busy. Now, Busy is tasked with all of the legwork, making sure the hood's running right. We talking about collecting proceeds and extorting the casitas. We talking about administering DPs, selling P's when he can, and putting that work in, catching bodies. And we also see him communicating with enemy hoods like Watts Body Great, trying to get things done for the dudes that's sitting down inside. Now, of course, this is still an open federal indictment. These are just allegations, but the feds alleged that one of his main situations was squeezing his homies. So there was one situation on June 19th of 2023 where he was talking to Oscar Hernandez, aka Drex, about a homie being DP. Now, this term DP is used very loosely with Florencia, I guess, because they say they about to just like assault somebody and it results in a full-fledged murder. He told Drex he just had to assault the homie, but he ends up grabbing a tool and going over to 76th Street. Now, we know 76 also has the Lil Malos clique over there. There's a lot of different cliques in F13. But on this day, they laid down one of their homies, Richard Amato, again, also a Florencia member, for not following the rules. Now, after this murder, Busy wanted to induct Drex into the Joker's clique. And like I said, there's a lot of cliques, a lot of infamous cliques. We know the Joker's extremely infamous. Bear Street, Huntington Park, infamous. We know the Midnight Street Boys, like I said, Los Malos, 8-5 Block, very active. Home Street, the Gangsters. It's a lot of different cliques in F13. And Busy being from Joker's, which is a high power clique, he wanted to put Drex in because he said Drex passed the test with flying colors. And again, the test was another Florencia member. Busy went on to say he also put on some performances with Psycho and Bulldog, and he said them dudes didn't even pass with flying colors, so he had to put Drex onto this Joker's clique. And so it was done. But 5 days after this situation, Busy is on the phone with another high-ranking member of Florencia named Hugo Pineda, aka Menace. Apparently there was a situation where dudes from that 5'9 Malditos clique were disrespectful to the Locos clique. Again, both cliques are a part of Florencia. Some disrespect went on. 5 days after they dropped Richard Amato, Busy goes over to 59th Street, knocks down a member of Florencia on their main block, a 21-year-old named Daniel Escobar. This is how
so it's internal shit going on.
Yeah, and that's always the case. I mean, we've covered a lot of different groups and organizations throughout the world, from Florida down to London, back to South Africa, Australia. And it's always the internal beef that brings these organizations down. It's the absolute greed and disrespect of not following rules, usually over money, that leads to chaos, and then police contact.
And their demise.
And then somebody gets caught and they snitch, and then everybody gets indicted.
Yeah.
You see it over and over. It's pretty bad. I wish there was a way these guys could not be violent, but I guess being in that world, like, violence comes with it. This comes with it. You know what I mean? And
you got to just show the people that you can't get away with this.
Oh, yeah. Once you violate the parties, that people that are in power, be like, yo, we got to make an example of him.
They coming for disrespect, not following the rules, and showing your ass against the program.
I got this money in a chokehold. I'm from a city full of cholos, gangbangers and po-pos. I'm making moolah, you a bro ho. And my name ring bells, bitch, in slow-mo. I'm rich and I don't know. Got my bitch in a...
Now, right after this situation, he yanked somebody from the 64th Street clique out of their car, beat him so bad that he woke up in the hospital, and then hopped on the phone and told another member named Shorty that he was about to get smoked for an outstanding debt. They gave him multiple chances, and he was on his last leg. Now, again, Busy has to carry this stuff out. And this is the difference between some hoods that somewhat oppose leadership or are scared to say, I have a leader. A lot of these Southside hoods, I'm gonna just say it, all of them operate with this kind of leadership structure. Accountability. Am I justifying how far they go with holding somebody accountable? Absolutely not. I don't think you have to kill your homies for disrespect, but we've seen other people do it. We've seen this from multiple different hoods, but this is somewhat of a continuous thing with the Southsiders because they're getting instructions from up top, and they know if they don't follow these instructions, somebody's going to be willing to step in their position and they're going to be dealt with. Now, a situation that really blew this indictment up happened in the Huntington Park section, where some of their members hit the news for stomping out Alan Mendez, who was 29 years old. It said that creeper from Florencia stomped him out outside of a night spot, and then they hit him with a metal baseball bat. This was back in December 2022 on Florence, and this really blew everything up, like I said, because it was high profile. But with Busy taking orders from Wizard, those extortion proceeds from the casitas and the drug money had to be accumulated, and a piece was going to Wizard, and the feds alleged that Busy was also stacking money for them dudes that killed that LAPD officer, Fernando Arroyos, and those dudes were also from Florencia.
We have a criminal street gang It's been multi-generational. It's plagued that community. It's plagued the Newton area for decades, since I worked Newton in the mid-'80s. They were out, by our information that I've learned or understand to this point, committing street robberies for the furtherance of that gang.
Now, that was the indictment that came out in 2022 as well. This murder happened January 2022, where Lil J, Gonzo, and Skinny Jack said that they was going around trying to make some money, where they ran up on an off-duty LAPD officer on 87th Street. Now, up until this point, between 2013 and 2022, like I said prior, there's been multiple federal indictments where over 50 members have been taken down between that 10-year time span. In this case, I don't know if it's because it was a police officer, but the feds also picked it up on him. Now, Lil J, who was from the Tiny Locos clique, Skinny Jack, aka Flacco, who was from the Midnight Street Boys, and Gonzo pulled up and they seen Arroyo's with his lady looking at a prospective house to buy. They jumped out, started snatching shit off of them, and it said that the off-duty officer pulled out, and Florencia's pulled out as well. Got into a small shootout where Arroyo's ended up catching one and collapsing in the alley and ended up losing his life over this situation. Now, the crazy thing is, when everything hit, the sheriff said they recognized these dudes because they had just pulled them over in the same car the night before. So it was already a wrap before it got cracking. And what's even crazier, everybody made statements. Lil J implicated himself and his girlfriend, and they put the Perkins, which is a confidential informant, in the cell with Flacco, and they also put the Perkins on Lil J girl, where she also admitted to previous robberies before this situation, and it was a wrap for these dudes for killing a police officer over here on 87.
Oh, they're getting life.
Oh, no, yeah. When it comes to, I mean, you get in trouble for killing a civilian. When you kill law enforcement, they throw the book at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they always get these guys. Like, you guys get locked up, and then you guys start talking too much in the cell. They always set informants to sit in a cell with you and get information from you. And then they use that shit against you. Like, you shouldn't be talking to nobody, man. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, if you're doing crimes, just eat that shit.
Just don't talk.
Yeah.
Don't talk. Don't talk on the phone. When the cops grab you, don't talk. Just ask for a lawyer. Don't talk. No hables, coño.
Now, shortly before this time, Wizard has been in the feds. He went down on an indictment in 2018. Again, another RICO, the same as this one in 2023. And right before everything hit, they moved him to a high security in Beaumont, Texas. But Tablas was and still is in state custody. He's never been federally indicted. And one would only believe is because Tablas has been sitting down since 1979. He went down for a homicide and was eligible for parole in 1999. He's the example of staying down for the cause, which is crazy. He could have went home probably a long time ago, but he's probably raised his hand. He's probably done a few different things to where it's somewhat of a life without parole situation. But his influence really showed when he wrote those rules in 2004 around this East Coast Crip and Florencia war. And that influence led to the largest federal gang indictment in American history at that time, when Florencia was beefing with the coast, called Operation Joker's Wild, which was a focus on the Joker's clique of F-13. Now, like I said, there was no winners in this situation. Both of these hoods admitted that they was catching hell. Both of their members was getting hit on both sides. Now, I've seen some people talking about the membership fluctuation in 5'9" and 7'6" East Coast. The key thing we have to realize at this time, 5'9" East Coast not only was beefing with Florencia, they was also beefing with the Broadways at this time, and also bordering the Bloodstone Villains and the Fidus Pueblos, and the Avalons were right across Slauson as well. 5'9" was on an island surrounded by enemies. Just to give you a context for individuals that say their membership isn't as strong as it used to be. Agreed, this is why. 7'6", not only beefing with Florencia, they were also tucked in between the Swans and the Kitchen Crips. So I just have to put that into perspective for people that may think Florencia is the reason why these two hoods don't have the numbers that they used to. We know 8-9 is still extremely active. All these hoods are still active, but membership has fluctuated. And of course, now we see the Kitchens are cool with the Coast and Florencia. But in Operation Joker's Wild, we see Pelon. Now, not Baldacci. I believe Baldacci is Lil Pelon, but Pelon, Jesse Vasquez, lead defendant around this East Coast Crip war. Now, some of the main shooters that was spinning blocks, looking to get cracking. We got Sugar, or Cruiser, Lil Black, Lil Frank, and Frog. Them four dudes right there was frontlining the East Coast Crip war. And the paperwork in this indictment uses African American very loosely. You know, like I said previously, Florencia has been tight with a lot of black hoods. So some of the documents may look a little bit more racial than they actually are. You know, not to say there is no racism, not going that far, but when it's up, it's up. And a lot of people get hung up on that 100 days, 100 nights situation. If you grew up in the city, you was out in 05, 06, 07, when they was talking about niggas couldn't wear them white tees and all that shit. I feel like that time was seemingly more dangerous in the city. Now, I know that's subjective. That depends on where you was at, what part of the city you was in. We know where the 100 days, 100 nights took place, but that shit in 05,
we don't know about
06
that.
with the
We gotta
white
find
tees, that was
Yeah,
city.
We gotta do the 100 day, 100 night. Like, what was that beef about?
Yeah.
Wow.
Why? And that was due to this Florencia and East Coast Crip War. Now, a lot of calls came out about all sets of Florencia participating and actively shooting at East Coast, because all East Coast sets were actively shooting at Florencia. And again, this is when Tablas implemented a president and a vice president of each clique. And on August 17, 2004, the call came down from Tablas stating that there was 4 smaller street gangs that needed to join Florencia before January 1st, 2005, or they was gonna press play on their ass. This is what I was meaning by gang warfare strategies and expanding territory. They gave them 4 hoods the ultimatum and the timeline. But for Sugar, aka Cruiser, we seen him around 13 shootings in this war.
Wow.
And we see him calling shots, saying F-13 must be united in shooting at rival gang members, and press leaders to let they homies know that they gotta commit shootings no matter what. We also seen Sugar administering DPs just like Busy. And when I say DPs, I mean the murder of their own homies, where somebody named J.I. had killed a younger homie, and they said the situation had to be taken care of swiftly, and they ended up killing J.I. We see Lil Frank spinning hella blocks, scoping out 78, 76, multiple times. He was involved in about 8 shootings. We seen Lil Black.
And that's not surprising, because one shooting is one night. If you outside for years or maybe a year, you're gonna get into shootouts.
Yeah.
Think about how many shootouts that you see how people get locked up for like attempted murder for one crime. I'd be thinking like, yo, imagine if he got locked up for all the shit he did.
Right.
He's lucky to even get locked up for one attempted murder.
Like they're
So-
saying, like, yeah, he was involved in 8 shootings. Who knows? Maybe he was involved in 2 or 22. You know, they're just making up a number, 8. Maybe he didn't do nothing. How about that?
Maybe he was just in the car when they were shooting.
Yeah. Maybe he wasn't there. Maybe he was hanging out at our crib watching TV.
Black or Negro trying to get at 18th Streets that was riding through their hood, scoping out 89th, and even knocking on somebody's door, hoping they answer the door so he can shoot them in their doorway. Lil Black with about 7 shootings under his belt. Frog was out here cracking too, saying when he finished selling dope, he finna go look for the enemigas. And he with another 8 shootings under his belt. So this was a crazy war. We've seen Florencia saying too many of the homies is getting hit. Again, steel sharpening steel. And if a situation like this can come with a truce at the end of it, every situation can. But like I said, we broke down the incentives. There's got to be some strategy behind it. There's got to be some gang warfare and some strategic movements in positioning. A lot of hoods are lacking generals that are thinking about strategy opposed to murder.
Right.
I'ma fuck your life up and disappear like who this, and you gon' be your soul man, feeling foolish. It's money in the chokehold. I'm from a city full of chow laws, gangbangers and po-pos. I'm making moolah, you a broke hoe. And my name ring bells, bitch, in slow-mo. I'm rich and I don't know.
But we know another hood that Florencia has been known to beef with, aside from the coast and 18th Street, right next to them down Slauson, Eastside Rabbit Gang. Now, there was a situation between these 2 hoods that ended up going down on Normandy and Slauson back in 2018. Now, the crazy thing is, this is Florencia hood in Harvard Park, but across Slauson is 18th Street. But it said a female named Annette Najera walked up with a bunch of people from F-13 and banged on a female named Carla and her dude Enrique. And they banged on them while dissing the Playboy. So maybe they already knew where Enrique was from. Again, this is right down Slauson, but technically this would be the borderline between Florence and 18th Street. Either way, they came up dissing PBS and Annette just get off on a female. So she was charged up, made her homies have to get off on Enrique. So they getting off on Enrique, and a dude named Victor Rodriguez from Florencia pulled a blade out. Enrique ended up getting the best of him with the blade, got it in his control, and him and Carla took off to their whip. When they took off, the F-13 members followed them to the car and was busting the windows out and trying to throw the glass in their face. Crazy enough, Enrique, who said he didn't bang, had pulled out a pistol and started letting off, sadly killing the female who jumped the whole situation off, Annette Najera, on 59th and Normandy at that Happy Laundry. And as you know, her homies went down for her murder, man. So it's definitely still up between Rabbit Gang and Florencia. And there was another situation where Pollo from the Malditos had felt like somebody living on 59th was from PBS as well. Again, with that metal bat, he ended up busting his mouth open, knocking his teeth loose, just so he could move off 59th Street. But a crazy situation that I saw with F-13 getting cracking was a situation that allegedly transpired between them and the 9 Deuce Bishops. Now, I spoke multiple times about the 9 Deuce Bishops, Morgantown, and Florencia over here on Firestone and Beach. at that Lucky Liquor, one of the hottest liquor stores in the city. It seemed to always be a murder right there because of some beef.
Speedy is a name I can replace in every race, and I make no mistakes. Every day it's a race, leave no motherfucking trace.
How do you own that spot?
Vicious and malicious, leaving no witness. Double with the fishes, 3 digits, it's 360s. Your whole full of bitches.
But like I said previously, historically, F13 has been known to be cool with Bloods, especially the Pueblo bishops who are cool with the Nine Deuce bishops. So I don't know what happened with the situation. It could be since the Nine Deuce bishops are cool with Mortontown or Elm Street, they inherited some of their beef with Florencia. And now this situation did happen a while ago, and I think Nine Deuce Bishop and Florencia have set things aside. But in broad daylight on 88th and Bandera, F13 put up 16 shots, hitting one dude from Bishop from behind. Another dude, they said they don't know if he banged or not, but he was over here on 88th and Bandera, but one of them was confirmed to be from Nine Deuce Bishop. And Travell Hamlet and Markeith Wilson lost their lives over here in broad daylight to Miguel Trucha Vasquez, who was from that Joker's clique, and Xavier Reparte, who was from the neighborhood clique. Now, the crazy thing is, like I said, it was broad day. A witness had followed them back to their crib and called the police. So they ended up going down on the same day, and Vasquez's cousin made statements on them about this murder, and they went down for it. But like I said, this was some odd situation that I've seen between Florencia and Nine Deuce Bishops with their relationships with Bloods. But overall, this is what's cracking with Florencia in the city of LA. A lot of federal indictments, a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of territory that they're trying to take over. And it's no games being played. But y'all know how we do, man. Make sure y'all...
Wow, that was a good one. I like that.
That's full of information.
It's Sharing TV?
We're out of here.
And I know how it gets, so I gotta stay low and I move my knot. I don't trust no nigga, I don't trust no man, ain't no friends, everybody get shot. You never know how nigga gon' throw, I'm hitting the flow with a couple of shots. You better move, you better duck, either way to go, you'll get got.